Benoit. But most importantly, we're here with the law enforcement agency headed by the Commissioner of Police and her deputies and other, I think all the senior Tobago officers are here. We've just had a general discussion on the state of affairs in Tobago. We received a briefing from the Chief Secretary. We brought our own understanding to it, our discussions on what we have been doing recently, what we are required to do now, and what we should be doing in the weeks and months ahead. But I want to begin by extending my condolences to the community of Black Rock, which is very well known to me. I have lots of friends and possibly family there, and we've had a very terrible tragedy there in the last 48 hours. We've lost 4 people to violent crime. So ladies and gentlemen, if nothing else, that tells us, among other events of that nature, that Tobago is not immune from the crime wave of violent crime that is being suffered by the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I wouldn't even say of the Caribbean, because in St. Lucia, I remember not too long ago, a similar event of 5 people being murdered in a similar way. I think they were gambling too, if I'm not mistaken. But ladies and gentlemen, I get a lot of advice as to how we should proceed in situations like this and how we should ameliorate or eliminate these developments. But a lot of the advice is rooted in an understanding that we could isolate Tobago from Trinidad, so that the bad things that are happening in Trinidad with respect to violent crime, firearms in the population, young and not so young people choosing crime as a business and a way of life, that we can isolate Tobago from that. I simply want to say that Trinidad and Tobago is one nation. There's no border between Trinidad and Tobago. So border activities that are aimed to separate the actions of one group of people from another is not available to the people of Tobago. If Trinidadians are wanting to come to Tobago for good, bad, or indifferent, it's a right, an entitlement. What we could do is to have aspects of policing and information gathering, because people move from one point to another, to be able to generate from that information evidence of their wrongdoing and then take the necessary enforcement actions. But Tobago over time has been seeing, through a variety of routes and sources, a creeping involvement in the criminality that was a bit more commonplace in Trinidad, and now more than before, some Tobagonians are in fact contributing and participating in the style of criminality for which Trinidad is well known. So we are shocked when these things happen, and we try to come up with a series of responses. We failed in the prevention, and therefore it has happened, and we have to make sure that we don't fail where there are further opportunities for us to try and stop these things from happening. But the population of Tobago has a number of issues like Trinidad, and those issues we try to identify them. The policing of Tobago, there are certain peculiar problems that we have to address, or that we have been addressing, and of course the effect of the society, where Tobago is no longer very different to Trinidad, because we are communicating on an ongoing basis. The modern technology allows a Tobagonian anywhere in Tobago to be in contact instantaneously with a person outside of Tobago. So it's a scenario like that. And at National Security, a couple months ago, the Minister of National Security and his team did meet with the Chief Secretary to discuss the same thing, even before this thing happened in Plymouth. And today we're discussing it again, and we have some reports to make to you and some ideas, and you, hopefully you have some questions you'll try to answer. But I'd like the Commissioner of Police to, at this stage, say to Tobago what the police has been doing or is planning to do in Tobago in response to your situation, where already in July we are seeing a larger number of murders than we had last year. So that is a very troublesome, very worrying situation which we do not intend to ignore. Commissioner, could you, there's a mic, give the Commissioner the mic, and could you stand here and so that the media can.
So, thank you very much, Prime Minister. Good afternoon to the viewing and the listening public. First, let me start by extending my condolences to the family, friends, and the community of Black Rock. And as been identified, there has been an unprecedented increase in violent crime on the island of Tobago. But it has not gone unnoticed. Proactively, what I would have done as Commissioner, I would have deployed additional resources of the GEB and the IATF, and that was to create and to facilitate a frontal approach against the criminal elements. Additionally, as of yesterday, I would have sent another group of officers to provide training to the frontline officers. Additionally, we will increase our intelligence focus on the island of Tobago. We will provide training and to develop the capacity of the officers in terms of intelligence gathering and investigations. And Prime Minister and members of the viewing and the national community, we still implore that we get the engagement of the public to assist with the human intelligence. We cannot do it alone. We will increase our technological capabilities with the use of the CCTV cameras, and we'll also seek to increase the intelligence gathering by the use of our cybercrime and additional forensic capabilities.
Before you go, Commissioner, I would like you to identify the officers who are here with you this morning, this afternoon, all of them.
So, sure. Oh, and well, let me apologize because I was not here by myself. So, Assistant Deputy Commissioner Junior Benjamin, would you please? Deputy Commissioner Benjamin is in charge of operations. We have Deputy Commissioner Suzette Martin with responsibilities for intelligence and investigations. Deputy Commissioner Natasha George in charge of administration. Assistant Commissioner Tobago, Mr. Hayes. Senior Superintendent Kirk. Superintendent Joseph. Assistant Superintendent Barra. And the inspector with responsibilities for crime on the island, Ms. Bacchus.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
The reason why I had this introduction made is so that what I'm going to say, I'm saying it in the presence of and maybe with the support of these officers, that the peculiarity of Tobago's policing is such that we have to probably do things a little differently. I was advised this morning that approximately 90% of the officers who are policing Tobago are Tobagonians in Tobago. And that might be a good thing, because people are policing home. But there are certain outflows from that which cause me and others to believe that the policing effort is not as sharp as it should be, largely because of the general maxim of familiarity breeds contempt. And we have decided in the discussion this morning that the Tobago policing effort can benefit from a greater effort of intermingling of the services and the use of the major resources of the nation to have as part of their development that our Tobago officers, particularly the young ones, should benefit from exposure and training with officers who are not domiciled in Tobago. That will improve their development, improve their skills levels, and allow them to function more effectively. And I think I have heard from the police that there are plans to do some of that. And also, I want to say to Tobagonians that you are part of Trinidad and Tobago, and especially at this time where criminals are seeking the ascendancy over law enforcement, that we will have to improve Tobago's ability to respond by drawing on the resources of Trinidad. And therefore, the circumstances call for more officers from Trinidad to function in Tobago, to allow the policing in Tobago to benefit from that development. It is not that Trinidad has perfected its own policing. We in Trinidad, the larger island in the nation, we have a serious problem of policing and criminal conduct. But we believe that Tobago, with its peculiar smaller population, isolation on the island, should really not be overrun by criminal conduct. And I want to say something to the population of Tobago too. There are a few tens of thousands of people in Tobago. Many of you know exactly who is doing what, and you have not been sharing that information sufficiently with the police, and the police is giving you the undertaking that it will redouble its effort to using the information that you share with them. The benefit of all of that is for the greater protection of the population of Tobago. It is my view that if we bring to bear all the resources available from the state, all the personnel, all the equipment, all the technology, that the police in Tobago should have the upper hand of the criminal element. And in fact, good policing in Tobago, in the old time model, is that Tobago police should know everybody in Tobago. Good Tobago policing, Tobago police should know everybody in Tobago, and that gives you a head start. I discovered today that the cameras that we have installed in Tobago, we've replenished the cameras in Tobago, but the new cameras are operating out of a central national database and access. And we, Minister and I, when we get back to Trinidad at the level of weight, we will take initiatives to ensure we'll get the technical help from Minister Bacchus and his people and the police people. We want to make Tobago's E99 specific to Tobago, so that you don't have to go through the Trinidad checkpoint to report an E99 incident and get a response from somebody in Trinidad on the system handling a matter in Tobago. We will ring fence Tobago and allow the new cameras to be operating and monitored. That will improve our response time, and it will give greater ownership of the information that comes in. We will make an extra effort to see if we can get the population to be able to assist, because great success in policing anywhere in the world, whether it's Chicago, London, Melbourne, Australia, great policing usually is on the backbone of support from the communities providing information to the police. The police has to rely on the information that they extract from the population and that the population volunteer to the police. It came up that in this effort of the Commissioner to put more resources on the island, we have some challenges of accommodation and so on. Chief Secretary has undertaken to work with central government to do some fast tracking of improvement of accommodation so that we could do short-term rotation of policemen and women to Tobago. And I asked the people of Tobago, when this begins to happen, that you receive this kind of operation as being in your benefit and not trampling on your rights and privileges of being Tobagonian. We all need to work together because we all, doesn't matter what we're wearing, what braid we have on our shoulders, we all have the one common purpose, and that is to ensure that criminal intent does not destroy our societies and the criminals do not get the upper hand of the policing effort in Tobago. I have confidence that we can do that. If you have any questions for me or for any of the officers here, I will take them now and I'll just manage the question time. So members in the media, please feel free to put a few questions to us now if you have to. Please identify yourself and put your question.
Dr. Rowley, good evening to you and the team.
It might help if you stand now, so because we got, yeah, right. Please.
Corey Connolly, Newsday.
Yes.
You had mentioned a while ago that the Attorney General would have looked at the possibility of implementing a police force in Tobago. Could you give an update on that?
Well, I know that the AG is looking at it and we intend to do that. I think there's common purpose in that. And there, for those people who don't understand that, it's not a question of just having a second police force. It is a local policing effort that will take from the current police population certain duties that are mundane and have them carried out more effectively, which will free up the other police, the National Police Service, to do more detailed, in-depth and sustained follow-up of the work that will give us the kinds of response to the problems that we're facing. So that second layer of policing, which we have in Trinidad, because we are the ones who expanded the community police, the municipal police. You know, before you had the city council police, Arima and Point Fortin. It was Port of Spain, Ariba, and who else? Well, the third one. It was Point Fortin. San Fernando, Port of Spain, and Arima had that level of policing. And even before the crime wave that was washing the country in the last 10 to 15 years, you had them. Well, what we have done, we have now taken steps and have added it across the municipalities. So Diego Martin, Chaguanas, Point Fortin, Siparia, we put that level in. So Tobago, I'm not a lawyer, son, I don't ever pretend to be that. But there was a little more complexity in doing it with Tobago because of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. Tobago is the only municipality, if you call that, excuse me, Chief Secretary, that has the Tobago House of Assembly Act in place. So the law to do that is a little different to the one in Trinidad. So when we did it in Trinidad, you couldn't have automatically done it. But we are going to do it and we'll give it some priority. So when you get that policing here, they will take over some of the jobs that are now being done by the main national police, and it will allow us to get better policing, and we'll work alongside the other paramilitary entities, and together a population of 60,000 people, with all that effort, the criminals should not get the better of us. Okay?
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Elizabeth Williams from TV6, Express and I-95.5 FM.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Wanted to know from you, as a Tobagonian first, from Mason Hall, Tobago. Are you disappointed at this time with the escalation of crime in Tobago?
Very much so. I mean, I am not happy at all, and it diminishes me, and I think it diminishes all of Tobago that we are making this kind of news or being out front for all the wrong reasons. I grew up in Tobago, and as I was telling those of us who were in the room this morning, this is not the Tobago I knew or the Tobago I grew up in. The Tobago I knew, parents took responsibility, serious responsibility, for instilling in their charges, their young children, the responsibility to be respectful, to be ambitious, and to, make something of yourself. Unfortunately, that's not happening now. The world has changed, and people are choosing. This is not accidental, something happening to us accidentally. Some people are deliberately choosing criminal conduct as a way of life. And there's no longer primary school children being taught crime doesn't pay, because some people are taking the position that to get paid, crime is the place to be. So I'm disappointed. I'd much rather that Tobago be the small part of the nation where peace, safety and security are taken for granted, because that's the reality. But because of that, we have become a soft target for criminals elsewhere in the nation. And we could hardly have expected continuously to not be seen, noticed, and encouraged into criminality by the rest of the nation. That's what's happening here. People who may have committed crime outside or who may have gone to jail from Tobago, built up relationships, come back to Tobago, have new friends who find Tobago is the place to do. And so all these changes are taking place, and they're reflecting or resulting in what we are seeing here now.
Mr. Prime Minister, earlier today, the opposition would have spoken to I-95.5, stating that, expressed a disappointment in terms of the government, stating that the government has failed in terms of its crime, in terms of treating with crime in relation to Tobago. What's your view on that?
Who said that?
A member of the opposition.
Oh, well, let's face it, right? I mean, the opposition could say anything and not be responsible for anything. And I don't know that the opposition's position is what drives us to respond. We are government, and there's a governmental responsibility, and the agents of state are numerous and wide, and what we try to do is to get the best effort for the nation. So an opposition comment that the government has failed, all I will say to them is that if they didn't fail when they were in government, they wouldn't be in opposition today.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Elizabeth Gonzalez from Guardian Media. From the officers that you said that would be coming to Tobago, I would like to know how soon, how many, and also if you could...
Not me.
The Commissioner.
Commissioner of Police. Commissioner, the lady has a question for you, right?
And also, is it that we are going to see additional specialized units in Tobago, seeing that we have added 2 additional units, which is the Interagency Task Force and the Garden Emergency Branch?
Okay, let's have the Commissioner respond to that, please.
Thank you for the question. We continually review our approaches, our strategies, and that is exactly what is being done. With regards to the deployment of additional staff, that will come following the discussions between the deputy commissioners and the leadership of Tobago. So those logistics will be worked out, and the media, the community, will be informed accordingly.
And let me just say something, right? I want to make this clear. I might be the Prime Minister. I might head the government. We might have a cabinet. But the only people in the country who have the legal authority and therefore the responsibility to actually engage the criminal and also to deploy police officers, whether it is constable or deputy commissioner of police, is the commissioner of police. So we have to rely on their effectiveness, their brain power, their plans and their programs, and their success will be our success, their failure will be our failure.
Yeah, I have a question for the National Security Minister with regards to CCTV surveillance cameras for Tobago. The latest number I have is that 181 cameras were installed. That's after the meeting with the Commissioner in March. I think the meeting was in March. Mr. Hines, is there a target for Tobago in 2024 as to how many cameras are we going to see being installed on the island?
We have indicated publicly that we propose to add another 2,500 cameras to the 2,005 that we have recently installed, with the amount that you said allocated specifically to Tobago. So as those are procured and come into operation, we have no doubts that other locations as identified by the police will be seen to in Tobago. Thank you.
Yes, it's Maxwell Taylor, Channel 5 News, Tobago Channel 5. And I've heard a lot of times speak about the gang activity being pushing the gun violence that is in Tobago. I'm trying to find out if the gangs are indigenous to Tobago or are these Trinidad gangs that are stretching the activities to Tobago.
I think from the news and from the information we have, it's both, but I'd like to ask Officer Hazel to respond to that question, please. Are there Tobago criminal gangs at work?
Thank you very much. I want to say to us all that within the Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago, we have had a proliferation of gangs coming from both islands, where persons are seeking the opportunity to explore on criminal activities, and therefore it is not specific to any part of the jurisdiction, but we have had persons from both islands involved in gang activities.
Okay, so we can't say it's Trinidad gangs or it's Trinidad criminals who are terrorizing Tobago. Tobago is making its own contribution to its own heartache. Yes.
Good afternoon again. I have a question for the Chief Secretary. I just want your thoughts on the outcome of the meeting today. Were any milestones set? Is it that we are looking at a 7% decline by the end of the year? Just give me feedback on that.
Thank you for putting that question to the Chief Secretary.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. Firstly, the Commissioner of Police is the one responsible for treating with crime in law. So the question of percentages, I'll leave that for the Commissioner of Police. But yes, the meeting, I think, was a very productive one. We went through in great details the uniqueness of the Tobago circumstance and some strategies for treating with those circumstances. And as you would expect, we can't just publicly conversate about those strategies, because certainly we want to have an advantage against those who wish to destroy our peaceful paradise. But I'll end by saying this though. I hope for all Tobagonians looking that you have an appreciation that there is a need for an even more aggressive approach to policing and to treating with criminals on island. And I hope that when such an aggressive approach is taken, that we will get the support of the community at large, because we need you as part of the policing effort. We need you to support the TTPS. We need you to share information safely. We need you to cooperate with the TTPS and ensure that we can return Tobago to where it once was. And given that our population size remains relatively small, our geography is not changing. We didn't grow by not even a few inches. In fact, we probably lost some inches due to climate change. Certainly Tobago can be a pilot for what a safe community can look like and how we ought to respond to criminal elements.
Mr. Chief Secretary, I know you stated previously in the past about treating with derelict vehicles in Tobago, all across Tobago. How is that shaping up?
Well, relatively well. What is happening is that we have a team that comprises public health, lawyers, and they're getting advice and guidance with the TTPS. And so in that combined effort, they are systematically cleaning up the streets. And that is to ensure ease of passage, ensure that these derelict vehicles don't present opportunities for hiding drugs and all of those things. So that is proceeding as we speak.
I just want to bring to the attention of the Prime Minister a situation that is ongoing with Registrar General. It's a situation that was brought to the attention of the Chief Secretary previously. There's a situation right now where Tobago seems to be locked out in terms of the computer system.
Again?
Well, yes.
Is that accidental or is it deliberate?
I don't want to make a pronouncement on that, but there appears to be a situation because some Tobagonians would have called me upset. Even Mr. Prime Minister, one Tobagonian told me they journeyed to Trinidad because the birth paper was not readily available in Tobago. There's also a situation where death certificates are not, it cannot be accessible in a timely manner. Previously, the situation was that someone in Trinidad was locking the computer system, so Registrar General in Tobago could not have access. So I said, let me at least bring this to your attention so that you can look into it.
Well, thank you very much for that, because this is surprising to me, and I thought we had dealt with this comprehensively when it arose a few months ago, because it had to do with an interpretation by some public servant as to what the law permitted. And we did in fact rectify it by making sure that we had the proper interpretation and that Tobago's access to the system was facilitated. So I'm surprised, but I'll look into it as soon as I get out of here.
In terms of treating with crime, do you think we have lost the war on crime at this time?
No, we have not lost it, and we do not intend to lose it. And if you ask why I say that we have not lost it, the war on crime is a war on people's behavior. And it was never a situation of flicking a switch. It's a situation of being engaged for as long as is required to be engaged. So there is no day in the future when we will say there will be no crime in the country, or there wouldn't be a person who is planning to execute a crime. We just have to be engaged permanently. And that is why, from day one, the establishment of a constabulary, even in the good old days, which is a long way from where we are now, in terms of the killing and the shooting and so on, you had a constabulary to respond to whatever negative was coming from the behavior of the population. We have made some progress, not as much as we would like, not as much as the resources indicate that we could have, but we are constantly trying, and that is why at the level of the government, National Security Ministry, National Security Council, and the people who are running the various services. But you know, it's a kind of a waterbed situation. The minute you squeeze one area, it bulges in another area. You don't eliminate one area and say, okay, put that behind, it's done. The criminal element is like a biological entity that is harming you. We dealt with COVID a while back, and you saw what happened we started with Delta and then we end up with this one and that one and that one. The criminals are not prepared to respond by changing their intention to carry out crime because you have done something. They consistently will try to get a loophole, an advantage, an opportunity. And the one thing that the criminal has, which the rest of us will never have, is that they make the decision when they're going to commit a crime, where they will commit it, and who they'll commit it against. That they will always have that. So in many instances, we respond to their inner thoughts as they express them outwardly. So we cannot say that, well, we overcome crime and criminality and then we are now in nirvana. We have to be constantly engaged, be informed of what they're doing, what they're thinking, and to be able to respond in a way that it doesn't benefit them as they think it would.
Good afternoon again. Just a follow-up question from what I asked the Chief Secretary a while ago. As leader of the island, are you satisfied with the plans that were discussed today, and how much of a dent do you think it can make in the crime situation on the island?
Yes, I'm satisfied with the plans discussed today, and if we're able to execute them, resource challenges and all, I think we'll be able to make a significant dent. We are not too far gone. I don't think we have gone over the edge as yet, but we don't want to get to that point. So I want you to see today's meeting as being proactive and ensuring that we're not waiting until the situation worsens to then respond. See this as us doing an intervention in a timely manner. Every death we have had so far is one way above what we would like to have on the island. And certainly with an island whose main economy, one of its main productive sectors outside of the government sector is in tourism, we certainly won't want this getting beyond where it is now. So it's really about a sort of consolidated and collaborative effort on all fronts to attack this problem. It does not mean that with all our best efforts that we won't have another murder for the rest of our history. I want us to be realistic and practical. So I don't want when the next murder comes, you say the Chief Secretary say he's satisfied with the plan and we ain't gonna get no murder. That's what I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying clearly is that the plans we have discussed, they're all solid plans, they are grounded in data, they are scientific in nature, and once we are able to execute them with the resources we have, chances are we will see a significant reduction. We are in the month of July, the 7th month. I know this is supposed to be the best month of the year, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm told, because I started the month. October. But certainly for the second half of the year, we really will want to make an effort to reduce the numbers in comparison to the first half of the year. We have already gone past last year's figure. So right now we are looking at second half being better than the first half of the year. That's the goal. And that's as close to a percentage as I will venture.
And let me just add for finality as we end this press conference that the central government has the responsibility for national security in Tobago. Under the laws that we operate under, notwithstanding the THA Act and the executive authority of the THA, safety and security in Tobago is the responsibility of the central government. And I have every intention to discharge that responsibility with the people of Tobago, for the people of Tobago. The police told us this morning in great detail what can help them to improve the situation, and the central government will take steps to make every one of those threads available so that the fabric can be strong. Not the least of which is looking at, from an administrative standpoint, a better located and functional police headquarters in Tobago. We look at we discussed the whole question of what do you call it? When you build those temporary, a prefab structure. The Chief Secretary has advised that We might have a site available in Bacolod, and we'll move very quickly to see if we can put a better administrative accommodation in place, because everybody agrees that that might help in our managing the Tobago ban. So finally, I would say to the people of Tobago, each and every one of you, if you have information about criminal conduct in Tobago, especially violent criminal conduct, you will do yourself a great favor if you advise the police through the mechanisms that are available of who in Tobago is threatening not only your life, but your community and the general well-being of Tobago. A small number of people behaving like this could destroy the potential that Tobago holds out to its citizens. Thank you all very much, and thank you for coming.